Today's video is sponsored by the Song Songwriting Inspiration app. With Song, you can quickly organize over 6,000 guitar chords into major and minor keys and start writing more sophisticated, harmonically rich songs. Save your lyrical ideas and record quick melodies right inside the app to stay organized. Check out the Song Songwriting Inspiration app today. Links in the description.
What's happening?
Hey, what's up, Billy?
How are you?
Hey, it's Brad. How's the weather out in California?
The weather's not bad. The climate of the human race is nuts, you know?
Oh, tell me about it. Just so the audience knows, we are speaking to Billy Rowe of Rock and Roll Relics Guitars. Tell me a little bit about your business and what you do.
Well, we started in San Francisco, California. That's where I'm from. I'm a native SF guy. And then we've relocated down to Los Angeles just about 2 years ago.
Do you do a lot of clone relic guitars? I'm led to believe here by looking at your website.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, I don't know if I want to go down that wording personally, but you know, it's just classic style stuff, and it's got its own twist to it. Kind of like, I don't know. It's kind of like a lot of us do. You know, I mean,
sure.
You could go on to the early days of you know, the Fender style stuff, and I mean, you could say Charvel's clone style, I guess, at the same time.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of cool stuff, a lot of classic, I don't know, a lot of stuff that's reminiscent of stuff people recognize.
Yeah, exactly. It's a nod to the classic stuff, you know. But we do have our own, you know, design, so to speak. You know, we have some of that completely our own, you know, and then some that are classic style, and then some that are classic style but are, you know, veered into the other direction for certain reasons.
So the reason for my call, Billy, I don't know if you know this or not, but we didn't go too much into it, but we have a mutual friend who shall remain unnamed, and he shall remain unnamed for some legal reasons that will become apparent in a little bit. But I have been led to believe through him that you, in addition to him, and a lot of other people were recipients of an offer from Gibson quite a while back. And the offer kind of began with a cease and desist letter telling you that you could no longer sort of produce, you know, classic Gibson style, according to them, shapes. And that instead they kind of invited you to enter into a licensing agreement, which this other fellow that introduced me to you had already done. I am in now possession of the actual license agreement. What I would like from you, because I cannot have him on my show, and I can't talk to him directly because he entered into this agreement, unfortunately, and that kind of binds his hands. I'm led to believe that you did refuse to sign such an agreement. Is that correct?
Yeah, I didn't. I had no interest in it.
Okay.
So, and you know, a lot of it is based on, you know, a lawyer, you know, that I have, and just overall the history of things like that's gone on with all this, you know.
Do you remember specifically, like, maybe some of the objections of the lawyer? Because I can kind of guess by reading through this what some of his objections might have been, but do you recall in any way?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could probably go on for hours about that. It's just, you know, it's one person saying, you know, the sky is blue, and the other one said it's red, you know. It's just,
right.
Really comes down to that. Somebody can look at a square box and say it's round. That's kind of what you're dealing with.
It reads to me like a document that's kind of designed to entrap the person or entity that's signing this into sort of signing away their ability to even so much as criticize Gibson in the future, let alone be able to build any of their stuff without permission. I mean, is that kind of the way that you read it also?
Yeah, I think so. You know, in my past, being in music at a young age, signing pretty big record deals and stuff in the 80s and stuff, I think I've learned that it's like, wow, like the music industry has shackled some of the, you know, some of the biggest artists on the planet by signing certain things and all that. If it makes sense to sign something, it makes sense. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. I just want to have my, you know, do my thing.
So how long had you been doing your thing? I mean, how long have you been kind of building your own guitars and stuff and that sort of style?
It's been a while, you know, like 15 years or something that I've actually been doing. You know, well, not at this level, but you know, maybe 10 or something like that. But I mean, I can go back to 1981 of high school when I built my first guitar, so
Right.
And just being into tinkering with stuff and growing up in the 70s when a lot of this kind of stuff started to come about from, pickups and different components and pedals and all that stuff, that when this whole, what is known as the music gear industry now, back then when I was a kid, when it was, fresh and new, so I kind of grew up with all this stuff. And some people just gravitated to it. I mean, it's pretty well known that Eddie Van Halen painted his guitars and hot rodded his stuff with pickups and tried different things. And people like George Lynch are into that, and just kind of how I got into things too. I've always just been into like tweaking with stuff.
Right. Do you recall who approached you first from Gibson? Like, was it like Caesar, or was it someone else like further down the chain, or who approached you first with this kind of offer? Was it a letter, or?
I don't really remember exactly. It's all kind of a letter, and a lot of that stuff I just have my lawyer deal with it.
Right. That's kind of why I wanted to talk to you briefly, because, again, I'm in possession of this this document, but I have no real way of independently verifying its veracity as an actual Gibson agreement, other than trying to find somebody who would have seen it and not signed it, because the only people who could really even talk about it would be the ones who did not sign it, because it contains within it a confidentiality agreement. So anybody who talks about this, who signed it, would be in breach of the agreement and could be held liable in a court. So, but since you did not sign it, I'm presuming that you did not sign any kind of other NDA before they gave you this document.
No, I didn't sign anything.
Okay.
I can't memorize all that stuff, and again, the lawyer read a lot of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's I mean, it sounds like just like a type of agreement that any company that's going to do that, they're going to try to just being able to control everything,
Right.
And it's the same thing like a music industry. You signing these record deals, you sign away your rights to your music, the use of the music. Some people with the publishing, they don't even know what they're signing, and it's like, next thing they do, they write these songs. I mean, it's classic with John Fogerty. He signed a deal where he couldn't even play the songs he wrote live for like 30 years.
Yeah, good point. Hey, I remember that.
I mean, so it's just like, there's people will do that in all kinds of deals, even a marriage divorce. It could be where, child custody. It's just, it really just depends on how evil one side is versus the other, I guess.
Yeah, what I thought was really interesting is that they're basically saying at one point that the company that signs this, or the person who signs this, you will do nothing to damage the reputation of Gibson or the trademarks. I thought that was really interesting, because at the end of the agreement they actually refer to this section, which is Section 3, and they go further by saying that the terms of this agreement will survive the termination or expiration of this agreement. So basically, when you sign on to this, even if the agreement, terminates at some point, that section does not terminate, which means you will never be able to legally you'll never be able to legally say anything bad about Gibson ever again.
Right.
Which, I'm sure your lawyer probably read that and said you would have to be foolish to sign this. Would be my guess. Was there anything specific that he or she said, your lawyer, that, in regards to, did they say absolutely not, or was this, okay, you might sign this if you want to do this, and these are the bads, or do you recall that conversation and kind of how that went?
Yeah, I don't really recall, any detail of that, but other than this, like, just, a lawyer just steers you away if something doesn't sound good. They just like, this is not good, so. Yeah, I think we both agreed, but I definitely listened, and I agree on just my experience in the past of, contract signing. It's like, I don't know, it's just a lot of that stuff just didn't feel right,
Sure. Well, I
There's
mean,
a lot of
I
mumbo
kind of,
jumbo people put in these contracts that it's just your average person doesn't understand it, and it's a shame that happens. A lot of people get stuck in legal issues that they signed it out of good faith, but yet they just didn't understand the details of things, and they screw themselves.
yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I'm frankly why I'm talking to you. I've never met you before. This is the first time we've met, and hi, by the way. So, but instead of the other fellow, because I looked through this contract, and after he had sent me this, I said, hey, look, man, according to this contract, even if you come on my show and talk bad about Gibson, that you could be liable for a lawsuit. I said I would strongly advise you not to come on and talk about them at all. I actually went as far as to talk to a lawyer neighbor of mine, asking him, "Hey, man, can they actually put in a contract like this that parts of the contract cannot possibly expire? And how could that? Because it's self-referential, and how would they be able to do that to say?" This contract will never expire,
Right.
And he said, well, it's kind of common in some cases, like in cases of, I don't know, he seems like insurance and stuff like that. Sometimes they do stuff like
Sure.
that. So I just told him, I was like, look, man, I can't talk to you, but is there anybody else who didn't sign this? And he said, actually, yeah, there is one guy he knew. So, and that's why we're talking now. But was there anything that, you can recall thinking about what Gibson's motive might have been in getting you to sign something like this? Other than trying to shut you up or control, the direction of your company, or, what I have my ideas, but what do you think the reason is that they're doing this? The real reason?
I guess it's a good question. I don't know. They have their history of stuff and bankruptcy and all that stuff they've gone through. So who knows what it could be?
Yeah, the fellow that I talked to, we were just shooting the shit about it, and the subject inevitably came back to, they're trying to bolster their trademark, they're trying to bolster their trademarks in any kind of lawsuits with people like Dean, and they're trying to get a lot of these people like you guys to sign on and say, yeah, Gibson, we acknowledge that Gibson owns these trademarks, which frankly are, they kind of abandoned in the 1960s, most of them, or the 50s even, most of them, and didn't try to protect them for decades. And I think they realize possibly that they're in the wrong on that, and they're never going to win any lawsuits unless they can get a bunch of people to sign on to the fact that, yes, we agree that you have the rights to all this stuff. I want to get your impression on this too, man. One of the interesting things is that in their listing of all of the trademarks at the start of this agreement, so they list whereas Gibson is the sole and exclusive owner of the Les Paul body shape, the Explorer body shape, SG body shape, Firebird, the Flying V, Bell Rod truss rod cover. They basically list all of the stuff that they're claiming as their trademark, and they're pointing to that in this one section, that section 3, that they say will never expire, and they're saying that you acknowledge that Gibson is the sole owner of all this stuff, so that in perpetuity, even after the expiration of this licensing agreement, you will never be able to make this stuff ever again. So your lawyer, whoever that is a very good lawyer. Basically, they saved your entire business, I think, by saying no to this.
Yeah, a lot of this, it's so, I don't know, this stuff can go so deep and so endless, and the way I look at it is like, there's a band called Greta Van Fleet that sounds like Led Zeppelin, are you going to cease and desist them because it's going to cause confusion to a listener that it could be Led Zeppelin? How far do you go with stuff like this? That's the problem with, I think back in the 70s when hot rodded Strats started coming out, and people started modifying things and all that. Even pedals and pickups, that's what created this industry to become so big, is probably people taking things and reinventing them. And to me, it's like if you just kind of step back and allow things to just organically grow and be inspired by other things, even if it might have a flavor of this and that, it's only going to help everybody in the long run and make the industry bigger.
Yeah, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats kind of.
Yeah. I mean, because think about, especially back then, like the '70s, early '80s. I mean, it was like the Fender style stuff, but it changed the whole industry completely.
Sure.
To this day, it created a whole new genre of a type of guitar and instrument. So
That's an interesting point too, because by the late 60s, by about 1968, there was a crash in the guitar market. And it's pretty well documented that in 1968, a lot of companies went under. And even before that, you had a lot of companies like Fender, selling out to larger conglomerates and kind of saw the writing on the wall and got out of business. But it's interesting how what you said, how the kind of the copy culture of the 70s, with all the cheaper Japanese stuff and everybody swapping pickups and DiMarzio coming in and people hot and rodding their stuff, and you had badass bridges come in for things and all that stuff, and people were modifying their stuff left and right and making the instruments better. And then you had people like Van Halen famously come in and innovate and inspire other people to innovate, like Floyd Rose, and it's like you make very good points, and I think there's something to be said for that. But I think Gibson's perspective on this is that, especially now that this new ownership has come in, is that, hey, we own all these trademarks that we haven't been protecting for 50 years plus, and they just need some way to kind of legally shore up or buttress their arguments in court. And I think it just seems to me that this might be part of that. And it's interesting to me how they're going about it, and how they're using their lawyers to kind of go after the small guys like you and like this other fellow who's a mutual friend. And like, if they just built a good guitar again, they wouldn't have any problems. They are Gibson.
Yeah, that's all you got to do is build a good product. But at the same time, we're in a different world now of like collaboration is such a big deal. I mean, look at I always go to the music world because that's where I came from. But some of these artists are all collaborating, which they've never done through all these years. Very little, maybe a little bit back in the day, of course. But it just grows the industry.
Right.
That's how I look at it. I don't know, how far can you go with it on the way something looks anyways, I mean, I don't think people are that stupid, to get fooled by something, and they're,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, the interesting thing to me is, Gibson claims a lot of things, and one of the biggest things that they claim is the headstock shape, the open book headstock shape. And there was one video that I put out at one point that I showed a mandolin that was from probably about 1880, before Gibson was even a company, that had the open book headstock on this mandolin. And I was like, okay, so you're claiming that you own this thing. I realized that you may have trademarked it first in the U.S., but you clearly didn't develop this, and it's not an original design. It's something that was lifted from a traditional design, and basically they stole it and called it their own. So I don't know, things like that. It almost seems like the trademark and patent office is being abused, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, when the .com world came in, I mean, some of these bands and artists or whatever, they had to go and buy their domain names because people went not trademark, but they bought the domains to
registered them.
Whatever, certain company. I mean, even AC/DC, they had to do AC/DC Rocks for years because somebody owned ACDC.com.
Right.
That did happen, and it still happens. I'm sure there's plenty of bands, and whatever, people who are doing businesses that have been in business for many years can't get their name for a web domain because somebody else bought it and people sell them. So yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I'm sure I know the open book headstock. And what about a violin? Are you going to, trademark, patent, or whatever the hell a violin? It's like, a violin's a violin. It's like,
yeah, and that's an interesting thing too. It brings up a question of how many guitar shapes can there possibly be, which would be comfortable for the human body. It's almost like the human body dictates a lot of the shapes of the guitars themselves,
Right.
And you're always going to have some kind of waist, usually on a electric guitar, just because it's a traditional form and it fits on the knee when you're seated. and you
Yeah,
have the
exactly.
spot for the belly, to kind of go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have all
Right.
these sorts of things that are ergonomic in nature that aren't even necessarily
Sure.
design oriented. And
Right. Right.
I mean, the Fender stuff in particular, you've got all the little cuts, like the belly cuts on the back and things like that are just
Yep.
ergonomics. And it just seems to me that after a certain patent period, those things should expire just like any other kind. Patents usually do expire in this way.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, it's like Kleenex. It's like.
right. So it's
Right.
some of the things that are being claimed as trademarkable, like the shapes. The shape shouldn't be trademarkable in the same way because it's more of a functional thing. And things that are functional, a functional improvement, is a different kind of patent. It
It
should
is.
expire.
I know. Yeah, those things expire, exactly.
Right.
And, from what I understand, at the end of the day, the only person who can actually say yay or nay would be a judge. Is it still liable to be patented, or has it become generic? Well, the only way you can find out is like you go, as people go to court and judge rule things that, hey, this is just basically become generic, because there's dozens of companies that are doing stuff that have been for years of whatever it may be, a vacuum, it's like,
Yeah.
for the most part, vacuums look the same, but somebody came up with it originally.
Well, on that point, Gibson has actually lost a couple of battles in court. They lost the single cut battle to PRS, in 2005-ish or 6-ish, something like that. And they recently also lost the trademark to their Flying V, I think, and the Explorer shape also, perhaps, I think, in Europe. So they're losing some court cases here, and it just seems to me that they're seeing the writing on the wall, and maybe they're just trying to bolster that. But it was this. I'm presuming they started this whole thing with you first with a cease and desist. Is that would I be incorrect in that? Did they ever give you a cease and desist?
Yeah, that's what you get is a cease and desist. That's like with anything legally. That's what I think the legal pattern of things is you have to cease and desist people.
Right. So was this a case where you just kind of just gave them the middle finger on the cease and desist?
Well, it's not a middle finger. I just, had a lawyer deal with it,
Right. So your lawyer basically just gave you the okay. He said, yeah, just, keep building until further notice kind of thing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, just do what you do.
Yeah, I think between me and you, and everybody else watching and listening, of course, that's probably smart because I think the Dean case is going to be, something. It's going to set the precedent. So whatever.
Yeah, that should be I've heard about all that, and I'm sure that's going to be a pretty big deal. Shit. I grew up as a kid seeing Dean guitars, and back in the '70s, I don't know. I'm a guitar geek. I never thought anything like, oh my god, that's just like this or that. I just thought, oh, cool, that's cool. That's all I thought.
Yeah, same here. I remember seeing them when I was a kid, and hell, that's been almost 40 years ago. The Flying V's and Explorer shapes then. So
yeah,
it looks like maybe you have a couple of possibly signature models on your website. Do you have any current artists using your stuff? Tell me a little bit more about who I might know that's using your guitars.
Yeah, I haven't really done like with Bruce. We did like a limited run of something that he was involved with. And it's not really so much signature guitars, but Bruce is one of the guys who's played my stuff, and Gilby Clarke, and I think one of the big ones for me is Billy Joe Armstrong. He's a big supporter of what I do. And
sweet. Does he play like a junior?
Yeah, he's really into like the double cuts and just like slab board stuff.
Yeah. Sweet.
He's got one of my hollow body ones, and like Johnny Resnick from the Goo Goo Dolls, and the dude guitar player from Mastodon. He's okay. Getting something coming up here.
Is it Brent?
It's Bill.
Oh, okay.
A few other guys I always kind of lose track. I can't. Sometimes I'm like, who else is there? But Dragan from the Backyard Babies. I don't know if you're familiar with them. Swedish band. They're pretty big over in Sweden. He's quite the guitar god. But yeah, those are some of the key ones, which is great. That's like that stuff really helps.
Have you ever gotten any kind of similar letters from Fender? Because I noticed you have a couple things that are Fender-ish.
Yeah, no,
So they and that's kind of what I'm hearing from a lot of builders too. That Fender is just kind of they just sort of go with the flow more. But
yeah, well, their body shapes are. I think all those are considered generic in public domain at this point.
right, right.
But then I always I think they've done a great job because they kind of just step back and they just build. They do what they do, and they've become bigger.
I think that's correct. I think I think they've even benefited probably from a lot of the custom
Oh yeah,
builders
it's
like
proof that's proof that you will benefit from it because there's probably, if you really think about it, there's a bunch of companies that are really more bolt on, whatever Strat style stuff. If anything that's saturated out there the most, I would say that's the shape.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The set neck, glue neck stuff or whatever. It just, at least from what I see, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and I think Fender's gotten bigger because of it.
Well, I think what it does is it kind of shows what Fender could do next and which direction the market could go. So it's almost as if other people are sort of doing their market research for them. When they do such things as, because I mean, Fender didn't start the relicking thing. That was other people. Other people started.
Yeah, other people, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Other people started doing the relicking thing, and then Fender went out and hired those people, and said, "Show us how to do this, and show us what you're doing, and how we can make our custom shop stuff better and even more expensive, and squeeze every last dollar out of our space in our factory, basically."
If you really want to get down to guitar companies, which not a lot of people talk about, but Gretsch. I consider Gretsch one of the originators of all this stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They were definitely there in the 50s when the electric came.
Oh, yeah, of course. And they had the hottest players in the day, from Eddie Cochran and, you name it, There's like a ton of them from those days, and it was all, they had the single cut and the double cut, and nobody's barking up their tree. I was trying to lay low with this shit, too, so.
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with any crap with this stuff. It's just like such a headache,
I don't blame you at all, and it's on the lawyer front. I mean, I really do. I honestly think that your lawyer did you a big favor by telling you to lay off of this agreement.
Yeah.
From what I'm reading, dude, you would have been so trapped.
Yeah, I mean, I feel sorry for. I mean, he shouldn't have signed that thing, It's just not good. Anything I know, a couple other people did it too, and it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and just kind of more admitting that, giving them more power. So
I think he and all the others who signed it probably knew that going into that there was probably some catch and that they shouldn't do it, but I don't know, man. Maybe their lawyer just wasn't as good as yours. So.
I don't know. I mean, there's dozens of people that this happened to. This is not. It's still happening.
Hopefully, we can inform some people as to what this agreement will actually do to their company, what this will constrain them from being able to do in the future, and maybe some more people will just refuse to sign this as a result, and we can just get back to level playing field where people are just building the guitars and trying to compete on the basis of how good their builds are rather than trying to meet everybody in court all the time.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's just so stupid.
Right.
Not cool, man. I don't get it, and I just try to just do my thing, and that's all there is to it. Just do that, but you can't help it. Like, oh fuck, man! It's like even doing this. It's like, oh, is this gonna like raise up some interest and like, you know what I mean? It's like this shit. I don't want to deal with any of that crap, man.
Well, I mean, there's always a double-edged sword to raising your public profile. Sometimes.
Yeah, there is.
Sometimes, yeah, you can catch some flack, but I think you'll also hopefully, get some attention and maybe get some sales. Fingers crossed. So.
Well, yeah, I'm a believer that, when this was all going down, it's like everybody just kind of, if it was never really brought to the forefront, as in all these builders kind of getting out there and just getting massive press about it. And because I think a story like this with the whole industry of it. It would if people really went forward with it, it would have gotten picked up. And that kind of exposure, that's what no company wants, that who's going after somebody. They don't want to be exposed and have their pants down,
Yeah. Well,
it's going to show a lot of dirt and like uncool stuff.
That's kind of my goal, dude, is to shine a light. And I think that was also goal, is to shine a light. It's like, hey, look at what they did to me, kind of thing.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I appreciate you wanting to come on. I told him, I was like, dude, I appreciate you wanting to speak out. But I said, and I would love to have you on and talk about this. But from what I'm reading here, dude, you can't.
Nope.
They'll sue your ass and they'll win. You
Right.
know? But the only people who can are people who saw it and didn't sign it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody that can, possibly confirm that it sounds like the agreement that was presented to them, and they did not sign it. And that was their lawyer's stupidity. Gibson's lawyers, frankly, they dropped the ball, because what they really should have done is give you an NDA first, that you wouldn't discuss the details of what they were about to give you, and have you sign an NDA and then give you the other agreement. That's
Right.
what they should have done, but they screwed up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's totally, Gibson's lawyers are really dumb. I don't know why they keep using these people, because they keep filing these, they first of all, they failed for decades to file the correct stuff. And then when they did file it, it was too little too late, and it just didn't make any damn sense. And then
What
they
kind
got
of stuff do you mean by that? They didn't file.
They didn't file their trademark stuff, like their updated trademarks that they've been filing here recently. They've put through so many different trademarks, like in the EU and stuff too, that they were going to use, to go after these people. And they've had some really bad advice from lawyers, I think, because these lawyers are telling them, hey, go forward with all this stuff, and you could take these people to court and win, when a good, competent lawyer would be saying, hey, you don't have a chance in hell of winning in a court. You should just drop this. A good lawyer would tell them the truth, but I think these lawyers, they don't care. They're just getting money regardless.
They're getting, retainer money probably. Who knows what, And that's true, because I don't think, at the end of the day, I don't think any of these companies would win, who are trying to like pull rights to certain shapes and all that, because it's just been too long, and then there's just too much stuff that's just been made through the years. Even back in the 60s, there's a ton of stuff,
Oh yeah. Yep.
I mean, that stuff has to come up,
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah, it's bizarre stuff, I'll tell you. I'm just trying to be safe, and I don't want to like cause any shit that like do me bad,
Come down on you, sure. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
As far as legal stuff goes, you're fine. You can say whatever you want. I mean, you haven't, like I said, you didn't sign it. The people who did sign it, it would have been nice to be able to have him on, but I told him, I was like, look, it's not in my interest. It's not in my interest to tell you this, but if you came on my show, dude, you'd be doing yourself a grave disservice. You'd be setting yourself up for a lawsuit because of what you signed.
I mean, I really had no interest in it. Of course, at first you're like, oh, this is crazy, But then, you just step back and I'm like, I don't want to be involved with anybody. I want to do my own thing,
Right.
And just my biggest part is like, I don't want to be affiliated with anybody else. I want to be just my thing, Just leave me alone. Let me do what I do, and I'm not, I don't want to bother anybody. Don't bother me. And
I think that's what everybody really wants and what they wanted, but I think they succumb to the threats, it just, or the, there's, and on one hand you've got, the carrot, and then the other hand you've got, the dagger. It's like choose,
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I mean, like I say, people in the music industry, they've, it's happened left and right, I mean, we're trying to get the rights back to my band's albums from, after 35 years, there's that clause of the rights revert back to the artist. And then just even in the emails with Universal, I get on the phone and there's a lawyer on the phone and the other people, and they're just doing everything they can to get you to stay and offering you more money, and they don't even make money on the catalog of ours. It's like I'm like, but they want to own it all.
Just a property thing. They think maybe in the future you'll get big, so they'll, yeah.
Or I don't know, So I'm dealing with that right now. In 35 years, all you have to do is submit this letter, and they legally have to give it back to you. And that's what we're going to do.
What was the name of your act?
Band's called Jet Boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you make some? You said you made some albums. What, like over 35 years ago now?
The first one will be 35 in I think 2 more years. It was recorded in 87.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of music?
It's full straight up rock. My band was from it was Jet Boy, Guns N' Roses, Poison, L.A. Guns. All of us, we were all kids playing the clubs. Those are all my buddies from way back.
That was an interesting place and time, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, and we still do stuff once in a while, but, to see Guns N' Roses where they're at, I mean, those are all my old buds I grew up when I was, 19, 20 to 25 years old,
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's crazy, the whole thing, so, but all those guys are still doing it, so.
Yeah, it's
we're
funny.
all doing it,
I saw.
I'm playing with that, that band Buck Cherry.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm playing with them right now.
Oh, are you? Cool.
Yeah.
Is it a touring gig or are you a permanent member?
Yeah, I'm like the new guy in the band.
Sweet.
I've known a couple of them for years, and it's going to be quite a thing to juggle for me, but it's going to be a good opportunity because I still got to play, and I think it'll help my guitar company too.
Oh, definitely. I can't see how it would hurt.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Maybe you can get everybody in the band to, like, even the drummer, drummer to play one of your guitars.
Yeah, right. Oh, they'll all play something for whatever whatever it's worth to get some attention to me for sure.
Yeah, right on.
Which is great, because they do some pretty high profile shows.
Oh, totally, man. I bet. If we can get back to normal, that is. I'm sure. I bet that's a big bitch, isn't it? Have you had a hard time playing with all the COVID stuff?
Yeah, it's a hard time playing for sure. I mean, people are playing. It's just out of California. There are shows happening. So
right. Are you like going out to Arizona and places like that, or?
Yeah, people are doing. Yeah, I mean, I think there's shows. You hear about stuff all over. They're starting to do comedy shows around in different states, and slowly opening stuff up to a degree. But I think the bigger bands are just being very careful because it could just be a backlash, I think. Right.
Isn't that crazy, man? There was once upon it reminds me of Eddie Izzard. Do you remember Eddie Izzard comedy?
Oh, yeah, totally. I've seen him, yeah.
I love that dude. But there was this one comedy show he did, where he's like, "Be careful, California, you're supposed to be the crazy state," and he was talking about no smoking in bars and pretty soon no drinking and no talking.
I know. Yeah.
But man, Billy, I'm gonna let you go, dude. I appreciate all your time, man, 100%. And congratulations on the Buck Cherry gig, and that sounds really cool. And
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Definitely, wish you the best of luck in your business, and keep my number, man. And if you ever want to holler or whatever,
I will for sure.
Yeah, man. I'd like to have you back on sometime.
Yeah, for sure. That'll be good. You're in Kentucky?
Yeah, man. I'm in Louisville. If you're ever swinging through Louisville, drop me a dime and I'll pop out and see you guys.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
All right, man. Sounds good.
I like it. Okay, man.
All right, see you, brother.
Bye.
Bye.